I'm Jonny Rosenblatt, co-founder of Spacemade.
I'm Dan Silverman, co-founder of Spacemade. The world has turned to flexible working. Building owners across the country are wondering how to provide flexible workspace to the population, and we solve that issue by operating buildings for their location to provide a space that everyone can work flexibly.
It was certainly pre-pandemic, but I think what the pandemic managed to do was sort of accelerate the shift in the direction of flexible working, but both been in and around the industry for longer than we cared to mention. I think what we started to see was that landlords were struggling to compete with the wider sphere of flexible working operators. They kind of needed the operational skill set and infrastructure to go and deliver these spaces well and effectively and be able to compete. And actually, the skill set required to deliver these spaces is very different to running a classic real estate business, and much more operationally intensive, and requires a deep dive into marketing and sales and every element really. So that was really the inspiration for creating the business and driving it forward.
We're the anti-cookie cutter operator. So we believe that you need scale, you need lots of different locations to give people options and choice, which is fundamentally important now. People don't generally want to work in one building 5 days a week. Sometimes they want to work close to home, sometimes in the city. So you need the scale, but what we exist to do is to provide that scale, but in a very bespoke way. So each one of our locations is designed and operated for its particular market. It has its own brand. So like in the hotel world, some people like brand that's exactly the same across the world, and other people choose to have something which is just spot on for its location, for the experience it's trying to deliver, and that's what we do.
So we launched the space in summer 2020, which was obviously a really challenging time in the global market. And actually the reason we sort of picked that time to launch, we were just coming out of that very first lockdown. And what we were seeing was a great demand for people who were desperate to work close to home. They were really keen to be somewhere that wasn't their kitchen table, somewhere that wasn't kind of surrounded by kids and the stresses of being at home, actually kind of conducive to a working atmosphere that wasn't a long commute away. So that really kind of inspired the start, and then the space has really evolved because it's a space built for the community locally. And actually, as it's evolved, as it's filled and as it's matured, we found that the space has become this hub for local entrepreneurs and local people who are building relationships that they wouldn't otherwise have. And I think it's communities often talked about a lot in the world of kind of co-working, but what we've managed to create here and in our other, specifically our other kind of close to home locations, is that genuine community where everyone's local, everyone knows each other, people drop off on the school run and then come into the office together. And I think it's created a new dynamic for the area, and that's been a really important facet for us.
Yeah, I think what we find is that the real estate market post-pandemic is quite polarised actually, and you have a whole group of people who believe that the world's going to go back exactly how it was pre-pandemic, which is we're all going to go and do 5 days commuting to the city centre and all be in the same location. And then I think there's another quite loud part of the market globally who believe that the future is remote and remote only, and we're all just going to go and work wherever we want to work the whole time. I think what we believe is that flexibility is going to be key, and choice is going to be key. And actually there are times when people do want to come together, and there are times that you actually want to work close to home because it's better for your lifestyle and your family. We've all learnt that. So for us as a business, it's about really both those things. It's about actually creating great spaces for collaboration and great spaces to do quiet work close to home. And some people choose to do work at home, and some want to come to a space like the Loft, which is probably within 5 to 20 minute walk away, and then go to the city centre for other days of the week, or spend all their time here or at home. So it's certainly a big part of our growth. As of I think Q2 next year, we'll be the biggest operator in zones 2 to 3 London, with a lot more growth to come.
We kind of take the view that I think because we've had this sort of slight dispersion of the workforce, which has happened at great speed. I mean, it's been happening anyway, but it's happened at great speed over the last year or so. I think the other major cities of the UK have suddenly become even more compelling, perhaps, than they were. So Leeds is a city that we really like. We're operating really successfully there at the moment. But we like sort of the other key major cities. So Birmingham is somewhere we've kind of got our eye on, Manchester as well, and places like Bristol Bristol and Brighton are kind of really interesting markets for us. So we actually see that the dispersion has allowed for a greater sort of shift of knowledge workers to other parts of the UK, which I think is brilliant for, you know, levelling up generally, but I think actually allows for a kind of a much more interesting dynamic of creating this network of spaces.
I think one thing we often discuss together is, I think in startup life we found that some days you do feel like, you know, you're taking over the world and everything's going to the business plan, and then the next day it could be that, you know, you just feel like there's so much going on and you're fighting fires. So I think it's constantly changing. I think for us, the beginning of the pandemic was obviously very challenging, both on a sort of personal level and on a business level. We spent a good few months creating our business plan and creating the product and building our infrastructure. And then all of a sudden, the customers weren't allowed to use our product. So for us, that was a difficult moment, and we spent the early months just sort of securing the business, making sure that our team were well and happy and being looked after. And then I think, you know, as time went on, we sort of realised the shift to what we were trying to do, the problem that we were trying to address, was probably going to be accelerated. So then we quickly switched to sort of kind of growth mode, launching the business quicker than we planned. So almost, I think, you know, we could look at almost like 2020 being our biggest low with our biggest high, as we sort of survived and then have grown rapidly since.
I think what we've seen is that we've suddenly become, our offering has become pretty critical to the real estate market, you know, which actually we felt was coming, but it came a lot quicker than we'd perhaps envisaged. That's been great, because I think the demand for what we deliver is right, and I think fundamentally what we're doing is brilliant for the end user and for the customer of the spaces, and actually opening up all these amazing spaces that would otherwise be reserved for a single large tenant that the landlord was hoping to get a 10-year lease from. Actually, suddenly we're creating this access to the most phenomenal buildings that otherwise they wouldn't be able to use. It's a journey. Startup life is a journey, and you really have to, you know, ride out the highs and lows. You can't get too ahead of yourself when things are going well, and you've got to really kind of manage the, you know, actually just take a point of reflection when things are sort of moving in the wrong direction. Yeah, I think because we build a brand for each space individually at the beginning, that brand sort of comes with a great deal of sort of upfront research and understanding, because it's specific for that building and therefore that wider market. I think that sort of feeds the curation. I think always, as with many businesses, but with us, you want to get the right key tenants in first, because actually they can create an anchor to bring people in, they can attract other local businesses. So we manage that process very, very tightly at the beginning, and then sort of allow the community to flourish from there, because actually you're always going to attract the right people by creating the right product. We believe very strongly in that kind of curation point, because fundamentally people want to be in a space with other people that think like them, that operate like them, that can help their businesses grow, in truth.
Last few questions are the silly ones.
We like silly.
Dan.
Hello.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee. In the afternoon.
Okay.
No, joking.
Tea and water?
Tea, coffee.
Jonny, football or rugby?
Football.
Dan, Google or Zoom?
Zoom.
Jonny, Shoreditch or Mayfair?
Shoreditch.
Pancakes or waffles?
Oh, that's a tough one. Pancakes.
Dan, city or countryside?
City.
Jonny, time blocking or winging it?
Winging it.
Dan, same or?
Time blocking and then winging it.
Jonny, cat or dog?
Dog.
Dan?
Neither. Yeah, dogs, yeah. Love dogs.
Jonny, early bird or night owl?
These days, early bird, yeah.
Yeah. Dan, train or plane?
If I can get on one, I'd go plane.
It's not very COP26.
No, what I meant was if I can walk across countries, I actually much prefer hiking, cycling, walking, running, swimming, big swimmer.
That is it.
Brilliant.
Great, thank you very much.
Last one, yeah. Okay.